The flames roared higher, licking at the sky as the sacred forest of Aho burned, its ancient trees crackling and falling one by one. At the edge of the inferno stood a woman, her eyes gleaming with triumph. She had set this fire, burned the one thing her village revered the most. For years, the forest had been seen as a place of magic and life, a source of blessings that the villagers depended on. But to her it was nothing more than a barrier to her own power. This woman, a trader named Amina, had always envied the respect the forest commanded. She had spent her life in the shadows of the ancient trees, selling small trinkets to make ends meet, watching as others claimed their fortunes through the blessings the forest provided. They said the trees gave protection, prosperity, and healing to those who respected them. But no matter how many times Amina entered the forest, no blessing ever came to her. So she decided to take what she believed the forest owed her. Amina had heard rumors of a dark ritual, one that required the ashes of the sacred trees. If she could destroy the forest and collect the ashes, the ritual would give her unimaginable power. Power to control life, wealth, and even death. The villagers would finally respect her. She would no longer live in the shadows. As the last tree fell in a blaze of orange and red, Amina gathered the ashes in a small clay pot, her hands trembling with excitement. The power was finally hers. The air was thick with smoke, and the once vibrant forest was now reduced to nothing more than smoldering embers. She felt invincible as she left the charred remains behind. But something was wrong. The moment she crossed the threshold of the burned forest, a strange chill settled over her. The air around her became unnaturally still, and though she was drenched in sweat from the heat of the fire, a cold shiver ran down her spine. She glanced back at the smoldering ruins. The ashes, still hot in her pot, began to emit a faint glow. Amina hurried home, eager to begin the ritual before anyone could discover what she had done. In the privacy of her hut, she spread the ashes across the floor and began to chant the ancient words she had stolen from an old manuscript. As she spoke, the ashes swirled around her, forming a circle that glowed brighter with each word. She could feel the power surging beneath her feet, wrapping around her like invisible tendrils, filling her with a sense of raw energy. She had done it. The power of the sacred forest was hers. But that night, as Amina lay in her bed, she was awoken by a sound. A soft whispering like the rustling of leaves in the wind. At first she thought it was just the wind outside her hut, but the sound grew louder. She sat up, her heart pounding in her chest. The whispering was inside her hut. It was coming from the very walls. With trembling hands she lit a candle and looked around. The shadows in the room seemed to twist and move, forming shapes that she could barely comprehend. And then she saw it, thin, gnarled branches crawling up from the floor where she had spread the ashes. They twisted and writhed, growing longer and thicker with each passing moment. Amina backed away, but the branches followed, reaching for her with hungry intent. She ran out of her hut, her heart racing, but the whispering followed her. The ground beneath her feet felt soft, like the earth itself was shifting. She could see the villagers asleep in their homes, unaware of the terror that had begun to spread. She wanted to scream for help, but no sound escaped her lips. The next morning, the villagers woke to find Amina's hut abandoned, the door wide open. Inside, they found the remnants of the ritual she had performed, the glowing ashes still swirling in the air. But there was no sign of Amina. That night, as the villagers gathered around the fire to discuss what had happened, something stirred at the edge of the village. At first, it was just a low rumble like distant thunder. Then the trees, those that had once stood in the sacred forest, began to rise from the ashes. One by one, the trees, now twisted and dark, marched toward the village. The villagers watched in horror as the forest seemed to come alive, moving with purpose. Amina's name echoed in the air, whispered by the trees themselves. They had come for her. The villagers ran to the edge of the forest, calling out for Amina, but there was no answer. And then they saw it, her figure standing in the middle of the charred forest. Her body was wrapped in vines, her face pale and gaunt. The trees had claimed her, just as they had claimed the ashes she had stolen. She was no longer fully human, her skin turning bark-like, her eyes dull and lifeless. Amina opened her mouth, but instead of words, only the sound of rustling leaves escaped her lips. She had become part of the forest she had tried to destroy. The villagers fled in terror, leaving Amina behind as the trees closed in around her. The forest had been burned, but it had not been defeated. Its power was far greater than Amina had ever imagined, and now she was trapped within it, forever a prisoner of the very thing she had sought to control. And so the forest returned, darker and more twisted than before. The villagers never entered it again, knowing that the spirit of Amina and the vengeful trees were waiting, watching, ready to punish anyone who dared disturb the balance of nature again. I hope you enjoyed the story. Remember, nature always reclaims what is hers. If you liked this tale, please like, comment, and subscribe for more dark and mysterious folklore from the African heartlands.